Y'all really want me to go crazy reading your comments, huh? Momo and Cabbage Man is the best ship. What does that even mean, y'all? What does that even mean? My ballet studio is watching. What? That's crazy. Hello, PCB. Shout out to PCB. Hello, Catherine. Welcome. A couple pronunciation things. It is Makapu, not Makapu. And oh my gosh, you guys. So, for the fortune teller video, I was looking up how to spell Mang. And so when I went to the when I went to the wiki page, I saw that the fortune teller village is Makapu, aka where Avatar Yoon is from. So I am screaming. And that village is pronounced Makapu and not Makapu. Quick summary of Chapter 3. Okay, so basically, Chapter 3 was all about Avatar Yoon. So, first of all, Avatar Yoon ships Rangi and Kyoshi, which is adorable and hilarious, and I love it so much. Second of all, his tutor, mentor, Heidan, is Rangi's mom, and she's teaching him fire. I should say his fire tutor. I'm sure he has lots of tutors. But of course he cannot make fire yet because he's not the Avatar. So he's not a firebender. It's so sad. I've already said that I feel bad for him, and I'm gonna say it again. But he's really been trying hard. And then so then he gets into an argument with Heidan. Genju shows up and is like, let's take a break. Let's talk about the political conflicts. And basically what's happening is Tagaka, who is in charge of the Fifth Nation pirates, has made a deal that she'll stop raiding some coastlines if they give her access to the timber at this one place. But Yoon is like, that's not really a good deal because she's just gonna keep raiding other places, so like we shouldn't do that. And Genju is like, yay, you're so smart and you're a diplomat, unlike Korok. And then at the end of the chapter, Genju is like, let's try this to get your firebending going. Let's take away your connection to the earth so that you can really use your connection to fire from within. And so he like makes these like spiky pyramids, and the chapter ends with Yoon about to try to do his firebending exercises on top of spikes. Yeah, let's get started. Yay, chapter 4. I'll always show you these little, my mom just came. She's gonna listen to me today. Honest work. Here's what it looks like for the YouTube people. Here we go. Chapter 4, honest work. Stepping through the gate of the mansion was like entering a portal to the spirit world, or so Kyoshi imagined from hearing Kelsang's stories. It was a complete transition from one set of rules to another. From a dull, mindless place where the only currencies you could spend were sweat and time, sowing your seeds and baiting your hooks in the hope of staving off hunger for another season, to a mystical universe where rituals and negotiations could make you supreme in a single day. Their passage was marked by the cool blip of shade underneath the rammed earth wall. Rangi nodded at the two watchmen, grizzled veterans of the Earth King's army who stiffened their necks and bowed back to her in deference. Wow, they're bowing to Rangi. Dang. Lured by better pay into Genju's service, they'd kept their dished, wide-brimmed helmets, but painted them over with the sage's personal shades of green. Kyoshi always wondered whether that was against the law or not. Inside, the vast garden hummed with conversation. Sages and dignitaries from far-off lands constantly flowed in and out of the estate, and many of them enjoyed conducting their business among the flowers and sweet-smelling fruit trees. An overdressed merchant from Omashu haggled with the Fire Nation procurement officer over cabbage futures, ignoring the cherry blossom petals falling into their tea. Cabbages? I know this just because it's a cabbage merchant. I know they're not the ancestor of our cabbage merchant, but can you... Oh my god. Okay. Two elegant Northern Water Tribe women, arm in arm, meditatively walked a maze pattern raked into a field of pure white sand. In the corner, a morose young man with carefully disheveled hair bit the end of his brush, struggling with the poem. Any of them could have been, and probably were, benders of the highest order. It always gave Kyoshi a thrill to see so many masters of the elements gathered in one place. When the estate was full of visitors like today, the air felt alive with power. Sometimes literally so, when Kelsong was around and in a playful mood. Auntie Mui, head of the kitchen staff, appeared from one of the side hallways and bounced over to them, looking like a plum rolling down a bumpy hill. She used her momentum to deliver a hard swat to the small of Kyoshi's back. Kyoshi yelped and gripped the jar tighter. "Don't carry food around where the guests can see it," Auntie Mui hissed. Use the service entrance." She hustled Kyoshi down the steps of a tunnel, oblivious to the hard bump Kyoshi's forehead took against the top support beam. 'Cause she's so tall! Oh, we love our tall queen. They shuffled down the corridor that still smelled of sawdust and wet loam through the plaster. I have no idea what loam is. Can someone please Google that and put in the chat what loam is? It was more obvious down here how new and hastily constructed the complex really was. The roughness of the hallway was another of the many little details that poked holes in the common illusion those under Genju's roof tried to uphold, from his most exalted guest down to his lowliest employee. The Avatar's presence was an uncomfortably recent blessing. Everyone was going through the motions at an accelerated pace. "You were out in the sun too much, weren't you?" Auntie Mui said. "Your freckles got darker again. Why don't you ever wear that concealer I gave you? It has real crushed nacre, N-A-C-R-E, nacre, I don't know, in it." That felt colorist. Is Auntie Mui colorist? Maybe she just doesn't like freckles, which is also not very nice. Kyoshi's skull throbbed. What, and look like a bloodless ghost? Go on. Better than looking like some sprinkled star poppy seeds over your cheeks. I wonder if, okay, I should get into this when we finish reading the chapter, but Kyoshi's, makeup, I'm sure there's more deep meanings for it, but I wonder if that has anything to do with it. About the only things Kyoshi hated more than gunk on her skin were the warped, infuriating values that older folks like Auntie Mui held around complexion. It was yet another contradiction of the village. That you should make an honest living toiling under the sun, but never in the slightest look like it. In the game of rural Yokoyan beauty standards, Kyoshi had lost that particular round, among others. Wow, we're really going to talk about this. Okay, they climbed another set of stairs, Kyoshi remembering to duck this time, and passed through a hall for drying and splitting the immense amount of firewood needed to fuel the stoves. Auntie Mui tisked at the splitting maul that had been buried in the chopping block by the last person to use it, instead of being hung properly on the wall. But she wasn't strong enough to pull it out, and Kyoshi's hands were full. They entered the steamy, cavernous kitchen. The clash of metal pans and roaring flames could have been mistaken for a siege operation. Kyoshi set the pickling jar down on the nearest clear table and took a needed stretch, her arms wobbling with unfamiliar freedom. The jar had been attached to her for so long that it felt like saying goodbye to a needy child. "Don't forget, you have gift duties tonight." She was startled to hear Rangi's voice. She didn't think the firebender would have followed her this deep into the bowels of the house. Rangi glanced around. "Don't waste too much time here, you're not a scullery maid." The nearby kitchen staff, some of whom were scullery maids, looked at them and scowled. Kyoshi winced. The villagers thought she was stuck up for living in the mansion. The other servants thought she was stuck up for her closeness to Yoon, and Rangi, with her elite attitude, only made it worse. There was no pleasing anyone, she thought as Rangi departed for the barracks. Kyoshi spotted an odd figure among the legions of white-clad cooks pounding away at their stations. An airbender, with his orange robes rolled up to his blocky shoulders. His massive paws were covered in flour, and he tucked his forest of a beard into his tunic to keep it from shedding. It was like the kitchen had been invaded by a mountain ogre. Kelsong should have been above ground, watching the Avatar, or at least greeting a visiting sage, not cutting out dumpling wrappers among the cooks. He looked up and grinned when he saw Kyoshi. "I've been banished," he said, preempting her question. "Genju thinks my presence is causing Yoon to prematurely dream about airbending, so we're trying to keep him focused on one element at a time. I needed to feel useful, so here I am." Kyoshi sidled her way over to him through the crowded space and gave the monk a kiss on the cheek. Let me help. She washed her hands in a nearby sink, grabbed a ball of dough to knead, and fell into work beside him. For the past decade, Kelsang had essentially raised her. Why am I already emotional about this? He'd used what leeway he had with the Southern Air Temple to reside in Yokoya as much as he could in order to look after Kyoshi. When he had to leave, he foisted her upon different families, begged alms to keep her fed. After Genju brought the Avatar to Yokoya for safekeeping, Kelsang twisted his old friend's arm to hire Kyoshi on. Wow. He'd done all this, saved the life of a child stranger for no reason other than that she needed someone. In a part of the Earth Kingdom where love was reserved solely for blood relations, the monk from a foreign land was the dearest person in the world to Kyoshi. Which is why she knew his good cheer right now was completely fake. Rumors flew around the house that the once legendary friendship between Avatar Kuruk's companions had deteriorated. Especially so between Genju and Kelsang. Ooh. In the years since Kuruk's death, if the gossip was to be believed, Genju had amassed wealth and influence, unbecoming of a sage who was supposed to be dedicated solely to guiding Kuruk's reincarnation. Bending masters came to the house to pay obeisance? In French, it's like obeisance. Obeisance? Obeisance. I don't know. To him, not the Avatar. And decrees that were normally made by the Earth Kings instead bore Genju's seal. Kelsang disapproved of such power-hungry actions and was at risk of being completely shunted to the side. Kyoshi didn't have context around the politics, but she did worry about the growing rift between the two master benders. It couldn't be good for the Avatar. Yoon ignored Kelsang almost as much as she did. She being Kyoshi? But ultimately was loyal to the Earth Sage who found him. I can't tell who that she is. Someone says obeisance. Thanks, Tiny Nerd. I don't know. Distracted by her thoughts, like me, she didn't notice the little puff of flour fly up from the table and hit her in the forehead. White dust clouded her vision. She squinted at Kelsang, who wasn't trying to hide the second shot that spun around above his palm, chambered in a pocket-sized whirlwind he'd summoned. It wasn't me, he said. It was a different airbender. Kyoshi snickered and grabbed the flower bead out of the air. It burst between her fingers. Quit it before Auntie Mui throws us out of here. Then quit looking so troubled on my behalf, he said, having read her mind. It's not so bad if I take a break from Avatar business. I'll get to spend more time with you. We should go on a vacation, the two of us, perhaps to see the air nomad sacred sites. She would have liked that very much. Chances to share Kelsang's company had gotten rarer as the Avatar and his teachers sank deeper into the mesh of world affairs. But as lowly as her own job was in comparison, she still had the same responsibility to show up every day. I can't, Kyoshi said. I have work. There'd be time enough in the future for traveling with Kelsang. I really hope so. I hope that line isn't like foreshadowing with him like dying or something. Please no, knock on wood. Oh God. Knocking on the floor because there's wood on the floor. He rolled his eyes. Bah, I've never seen someone so averse to fun since old Abbot No Fruit Pies Dorji. Oh, I meant to look up how to pronounce Dorji. I'll look that up for next time. He flicked another blob of flour at her, and she failed to flinch out of the way. Oh, she's whispering. I know how to have fun, Kyoshi whispered indignantly as she wiped her nose with the back of her wrist. From the head of the cutting board tables, Auntie Mui gave a tongue-curled whistle, interrupting their debate. Poetry time, she said. Everyone groaned. She was always trying to enforce high culture on her workers, or at least her idea of it. Lee, she said, singling? Maybe it's signaling, but spelled wrong. Out an unfortunate walk handler. You start us off. The poor line cook stumbled as he tried to compose on the spot while keeping count of his syllables. The weather is nice. Sun shining down from the sky. Birds are singing. Good? Auntie Mui made a face like she'd swigged pure lemon juice. That was awful. Where's your sense of balance, symmetry, contrast? Lee threw his hands up in the air. He was paid to fry things, not perform in the upper ring of Ba Sing Se, which is coincidentally where Sokka went to that haiku thing in Tales of Ba Sing Se. Wow. The details in this book. Can't someone give us a decent verse? Auntie Mui complained. There were no volunteers. I've got cheeks like ripe round fruit, Kelsang suddenly pitched forth. They shake like boughs in the storm. I blush bright red when I see a bed and leap at the sound of the horn. The room exploded in laughter. He'd picked a well-known shanty popular with sailors and field hands. Oh, maybe I should have sung that. Where you improvised raunchy words from the perspective of your object of unrequited affection. It was a game for others to guess who you were singing about, and the simple rhythm made manual labor more pleasant. Brother Kelsang, Auntie Mui said, scandalized, set an example. He had. The entire staff was already chopping, kneading, and scrubbing to the raucous tune. It was okay to misbehave if a monk did it first. Okay, now I have to think of a tune. Hold up. I've got a nose like a dovetail deer. I run like a leaf on the wind. Lee sang, evidently better at this than haiku. My arms are slight and my waist is tight and I don't have a thought for my kin. Mirai, a dishwasher yelled. He's got it bad for the greengrocer's daughter. The staff whooped over Lee's protests, thinking it a good match. Sometimes it didn't matter to the audience if they guessed right or not. Kyoshi next, someone said. She's never here, so let's make the most of it. Kyoshi was caught off guard. Normally she wasn't included in household antics. She caught Kelsang's eye and saw the challenge twinkling there. Fun, eh? Prove it. Before she could stop herself, the rhythm launched her into song. I've got two knives that are cast in bronze. They pierce all the way to the soul. They draw you in with the promise of sin like a moth to the flame to the coal. The kitchen howled. Auntie Mui chuckled in disapproval. Keep going, you naughty girl, Lee shouted, glad the attention was off him. She'd even managed to throw off Kelsang, who looked at her curiously, as if he had a spark of recognition for whom she was describing. I wasn't paying attention to what I was reading because I was focusing on the melody, but that's about Rangi. We'll come back to that. Kyoshi knew that wasn't possible when she was simply tossing out the first words that came to her head. She thumped a length of dough onto the table in front of her, creating her own percussion. I've got hair like the starless night. It sticks to my lips when I smile. I'll wind it with yours and we'll drift off course in a ship, touching hearts all the while. That's really cute! It doesn't say that's really cute. That's my opinion. Somehow sorry, I'm just wrapped up in the Rangi Kyoshi stuff. This is so cute. Somehow the improvisation was easy, though she'd never considered herself a poet, or a body-mind for that matter. It was as if another person, someone much more at ease with their own desires, was feeding her the right lines to express herself. And to her surprise, she liked how the inelegant lines made her feel, truthful and silly and raw. For the way I walk is a lantern lit that leads you into the night. I'll hold you close and love you the most until our end is in sight. Kyoshi didn't have time to ponder the darker turn her verse took before a sudden pain shot through her wrist. Kelsang had grabbed her arm and was staring at her, eyes wild and white. His grip squeezed tighter and tighter, crushing her flesh, his nails drawing blood from both her skin and his. You're hurting me, she cried out. The room was silent, disbelieving. Kelsang let go, and she caught herself on the edge of the table. A map of purple was stamped on her wrist. Kyoshi, Kelsang said, his voice constricted and airless. Kyoshi, where did you learn that song? And that is the end of chapter 4. Yo! Chapter summary, yes. So, now we're back to Kyoshi's point of view. And she goes into the mansion. We meet Auntie Mui, who seems pretty, cheerful and fun, but strict when she needs to be, I guess. We learn about the beauty standards in Yokoya. Yokoya seems a little colorist and just like against freckles and things like that, which is not great. So I wonder, and it sounds like Kyoshi has a lot of freckles. So I'm so curious about how that plays into her decision to have like her trademark look be that makeup, which I'm sure will probably have something to do with theater as well. That's just a wild guess from me. She goes down to the kitchen. Rangi follows her down there. And we meet Kelsong again, but we meet him better. And we learn that Kelsong raised Kyoshi, basically. And I'm sure that a tiny part of it is that he needed to get that toy back. I'm sure that might have been a little bit helpful, but he seems like a really nice guy. And he practically raised her. And whenever he had to leave Yokoya, he made sure that other people kept her fed and all of that good stuff. So I love Kelsong right now. And then Auntie Mui's like, let's do haikus. And everyone's like, we hate haikus. Oh, wait, before that, Genju and Kelsong have been growing apart. Yikes. Because I guess Genju is a little power hungry. I don't know. We'll see. But then Auntie Mui is like, poetry time! And let's do haikus. And everyone's like, no, thank you. And so then Kelsong sings like a shanty, I guess. Is that the word? Yeah, a shanty. And everyone's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. They start singing shanties. And now Kyoshi is singing shanties. Yeah, I think the first one, I'll read them to you. I'm not going to sing them this time around. I think the first one is about Rangi, but the second and third one must be from reading what you guys have written and just from intuiting it. It sounds like the second and third one must be songs that, poem songs that Kuruk wrote about his GF or wife. I forget if they're married or not. So I'm going to read them to you again. The first one that she says is, I've got two knives that are cast in bronze. They pierce all the way to the soul. They draw you in with the promise of sin, like the moth to the flame to the coal. Woo! Yeah, and we know that Rangi's eyes are bronze, and that Kelsong is kind of like, is that about Rangi? Like, he's thinking that. The second one is, I've got hair like the starless night. It sticks to my lips when I smile. I'll wind it with yours and we'll drift off course in a ship touching hearts all the while. That also could be about Rangi since her hair is dark, but that's probably about, because that Kuruk's girlfriend / wife, when I find out if it's his girlfriend or wife, I'll let you know, or fiance, his partner, significant other, her hair was also really dark. The last one is, for the way I walk is lantern lit that leads you into the night. I'll hold you close and love you the most until our end is in sight. And then everyone's quiet because Kelsong is gripping her wrist super hard. And then he's like, where did you learn that song? And that's the end of the chapter. I will not read, as much as I really want to read the next chapter right now, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a week so that I always read them blind. Did you like my melody that I made up in 2 seconds? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I should have used a song from Hamilton for that. That would have been fun. Oh well, that's fine. Someone said I'm impressed with your self-control in not reading the whole book. Yeah, part of it is because I have no free time anymore. But my mom literally, I played my YouTube edit of the first chapter for her, and she was like, oh my gosh. And then she borrowed my book and read the whole thing in a couple days. Blue, blee, blow, blue, blee, blee, blow, blee, blee. For today, I'm gonna say the Tales of Basuse, just for today. Simply because haikus were brought up in the book. And so now I'm thinking about the Tales of Basuse. And honestly, that is a classic. But again, I have many favorite episodes. So every week, keep asking me that question and I'll give you different answers. Scooby dooby 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 doo. My cabbages. Who's the most powerful villain? You know what? Last week, when I was editing the live stream for part 3, I was talking about how Amon is he's just a waterbender. He's just a bloodbender. But then between when I did that live stream and that next Friday, I watched the season finale of season 1 of Korra. And Amon is really strong. His He's bloodbending. Like, he doesn't even move anything, and he can bloodbend, like, all these people. It's wild. And also, he can take away people's bendings. Like, what the heck? Bendings. Why did I make that plural? I feel like they still haven't really explained why he can take away bending. I get the whole energy bending thing. Like, did he specifically learn energy bending? Or is he using blood bending somehow to take away people's bending? Who else is powerful? Korra is not a villain. Why did I say Korra? No, I meant to say, like, Ozai, he's not that powerful. I feel like he's just your kind of run-of-the-mill good firebender. Azula is quite powerful. I would say she's quite powerful. What other villains are there? Zhao is not. He's just a firebender. Zuko beat him in an Agni Kai, and Zuko was 16 at the time. And then I need to rewatch seasons 2, 3, and 4 of Korra. Because if we're counting, who is it? Rama and Vatu. If we're counting Vatu as a villain, that's probably the most powerful villain, since Vatu is literally, like, the spirit of whatever he's the spirit of. Yeah, and I don't remember how powerful Zahir and all of his friends are, so they might be really powerful too. My best friend just made a TikTok about when people do live streams. Like, it's just a parody of everyone that does a live stream. And it hit the nail on the head, and she did, like, hi from Brazil, and, like, that's literally what I just said, and, like, oh, thank you, so today, now I'm very self-conscious. Blah, bloop, 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 bloop. This is why I'm doing a Korra rewatch, but again, I'm only watching 4 episodes per week, so, yeah. I actually, now that I think about it, I do have good self-control with watching TV shows. If there's, you know what it is? It's if there's other people depending on me. So the only reason I haven't finished this and the second one is because of you guys. Yeah. And then the only reason I haven't, like, and I might go ahead and rewatch Korra before I watch it with my friends, because I don't have to watch that blind. Someone asked what element would I pick. When I was a kid, I identified a lot with water. Like, I was like, I'm a waterbender, and whenever I went swimming, I mean, everyone did this when you go swimming and you're like, I'm waterbending! But I definitely felt like a waterbender, and I feel like some of my friends and family say that I still kind of am, but in the past few years, I've really been identifying with fire a lot more, and as we learn in chapter 3, fire, like, comes from within, whereas the other 3 elements, you connect with the elements around you. And I really vibe with that. I vibe with that so much. So, fire. BRB, I'm gonna turn on another light. I think Zuko is the kind of person who would sacrifice himself for anyone that he really cares about, romantic or otherwise. So when people use that lightning jump as a justification for Zutara, I vibe with it. I feel it. That's a valid justification. But I also feel like he would have done the same for Aang, Sokka, Suki, Toph, Momo, you know, like, I feel like, I don't know about Momo, but, like, maybe, probably, Appa, I feel like he would have jumped in front of that for anyone in the game, and Iroh, of course, but, you know, who do I ship Korra with? Asami! Next question. Salamander Salad Man had a torrent affair, and he wrote it down right there. Highlights. You think you saw me in Hamilton? Here's the thing, guys. I always say, here's the thing, guys. I obviously wasn't in Hamilton, but that representation, I saw Hamilton the week that it came out on Broadway, because my high school did In the Heights. So Lin-Manuel was already on our radar. This was the spring of the year of 2015. And then that fall, we were going to New York anyway, my family and I, for a week. And so we got tickets for Hamilton. And of course, it hadn't blown up yet. People barely knew what it was. So it was totally easy to get tickets at reasonable prices. So we went and saw Hamilton. And seeing all of those people of color, but specifically Black actors on stage with their natural hair was huge for me. Because at that point, you know, I was going into my senior year of high school. I was really considering, like, is this what I want to do? Like, do I want to be an actor / singer, dancer, whatever? And is this something I can do? And, you know, I was resigned and still am resigned to being the token light-skinned black girl in the ensemble. And I know that on Broadway, a lot of people have to wear wigs anyway, but especially black dancers, like if you're gonna, and light-skinned black dancers, like if you're gonna be in the ensemble, your hair needs to match everyone. So you're either gonna be wearing a wig or you're probably gonna be wearing a wig. And to see all of those afros on stage, when Thomas Jefferson came out with an afro, I almost started crying because I was like, I can do this. Like maybe I not only can be on Broadway, but can be on Broadway and be myself and not have to pretend to be like a white person, you know, like I can be myself on Broadway, maybe. And so, yeah, so I obviously was not in Hamilton, but when you say, I think I saw you, I vibe with that so much. Like I saw me too. Live when I saw it and on that recording on Disney Plus, I saw myself too, and that's so important. Wow, I'm getting emotional, guys. Combustion Man and Hama. These ships are hilarious. Here's why I didn't like movie 7 part 2. Harry Potter spoilers. If you are still able to get spoiled for Harry Potter, sorry, not sorry. Please go read the books. When Voldemort dies, Harry doesn't defeat him with brute strength or power. He outwits him, and a lot of it isn't even in Harry's control. He just figured out why he won, and he just explains it to Voldemort in front of everyone in this super cool moment when they're rotating around each other and walking around each other. In the movie, they go off and have this lightsaber battle by themselves, and they're just pointing their wands at each other super duper hard, and the light is going, it's like, ah! And then Voldemort like explodes, and this, and he's supposed to fall to the ground. It says Tom Riddle fell to the ground or something like that, because the whole point is he was trying to live forever. He was trying to be extra and like be immortal and all of this stuff, and he died just like the rest of us. And he died younger than people like Dumbledore, and you know, like he died kind of, not young, but he didn't even live to be that old for a wizard. And he died just like a regular person. And so I was so mad with the way they did that in the movie. I was kind of furious at that. So, bing, 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 bing. Have you guys seen the French guy rapping Guns? Yes, his translation. Oh my gosh. Because you guys, I want to translate Hamilton into either French or Chinese or both eventually. So I want to do that, not right now, but like in my lifetime, that's something I want to do. And his translation of Guns and Ships, so awesome. What is that? Alrighty. Kisses, heart emojis, all of that. Later. Salut, au revoir. 再见.